right, we are live. Episode 112 of Pursuits of Balance. What is going on, everybody? We're going to talk about the number one way to solve all your stress problems and the thing that I believe would solve most of everyone's problems in life, not even just stress. As a coach, a lot of my conversation comes around talking about movements and taking steps and mobility and your exercise and the programming and the nutrition, more on probably the social media side of things and a little bit deeper conversations with some clients. So I get the opportunity to talk a little bit more about sleep science and the things to do to help improve sleep, and then stress, and then obviously a lot of this podcast is around the mindset and the community environment, the things I get to talk about on here. But I always come back to man, stress management is the thing that I think is still the hardest thing for me to resolve personally when I'm going through those moments. So I definitely just think I put a lot more interest in education and trying to learn okay, what is the secret sauce to this? And how do I work around this when I do have those moments? But then on the other side of it, as a professional, as a coach, I deal with it all the time, every day, between employees being stressed or clients being stressed. And you just see this downstream effect of how everything has an impact in the negative direction when you are stressed out, right? Your motivation to do things, your workouts suffer, your energy, your recovery from your workouts, your digestive system, your sleep quality sucks, your mindset's terrible. Now, this is kind of the dynamic, and the problem is a lot of people don't know the chicken or the egg, which one is really causing the stress, right? So you do a lot of kind of trial and error in the beginning, I think, as a coach, to really try to figure out okay, what are the things that are going to move the needle in the right direction as quick as possible, right? And I'll use today's conversation. This wasn't even influenced by today's, but actually now that I think about it, I had this client that I did a FitStar with. She didn't sign up. I don't know if she will. She might be, but she kind of gave me shopping mentality. It was a 9 out of 10 stress, and she goes, well, you're a business owner too. I own my own business, so you know how stressful it is. And I was like, it's a little subjective, right? Because I'm not, just because you're a business owner doesn't mean that it gives you the right to just be okay with being stressed. I think stress does not matter, and also does not cherry pick business owners or certain classes of people. It's you're stressed because of a choice, right? And a lifestyle that you chose for yourself, right? And this is the number one thing that I try to remind myself and everyone that's listening to this right now. Stress is a choice. And it is the worst self-inflicted damage that you can probably do from a health perspective on all aspects holistically of health, right? Your emotional health, your mental health, your physical health, your sexual health, your financial health, your social health. Everything will suffer when you are chronically stressed. So, this conversation, I was kind of thinking about it literally on the way here today. It was that's literally you just playing victim to your circumstance, of saying that the reason why I'm stressed is because I'm a business owner, right? And a lot of people justify their stress, right? And I think the number one thing to do is understand that stress is a choice, right? By making it a choice, you can then turn it around to say, okay, by definition, a choice is a controllable, right? So I can work on controlling my actions and controlling my points of views and my perspective and the things that are maybe going to facilitate or trigger something that would create stress around a certain thing. But what I really want to focus on, which I still today, this is kind of what I was opening up with, believe is the number one way to resolve stress in your life. It's the word action. When you learn to take action on things and you move and groove and do the thing that you need to be doing and work on the process or the thing that you need to be doing that's working you towards whatever goal or result or thing that you're chasing maybe in life, or just working in general, even if you're not chasing anything, that will create a better management of stress than anything else that I know, right? So my kind of conversation this morning, this just because it's most memorable right now, I was telling her, I was like, most people that I know, myself included, are stressed out due to overthinking and underdoing. Right? If you think about that, most of your stress that you probably have in your life has nothing to do with anything else besides you thinking about it being stressful. People blame two things. Number one, their work. Their work is stressful. Their deadlines, their teammates, their boss, their job, their environment that they're in, whatever. Number two is going to be the family side, friends, the people that they spend with, their community, right? And this is where the community environment thing always pops up as a conversation for me. But if we know that those two things are the most stressful, then what's like, and I said this on kind of the financial podcast the other day or the other week, was like, if we know it's something you're going to do forever, why is it a choice to make that stressful, right? But that's so much easier said than done. This is like the whole point of today's conversation is a lot of stuff is much easier said than done, right? But if we know that working out or doing work or spring cleaning or taking action of any sort helps us move the needle in the right direction of managing stress better, then that just needs to be the focus. It's like just doing work. And I'll give you guys a perfect example. I probably for the last 2 months, I mean, my back has been bothering me on and off for like the last year and a half, like kind of more frequently than it was for a long time. And it's a little frustrating mentally for sure. And that can aid in stress, right? And like something about pain that most people forget is it's multifactorial, right? Meaning it's like, it's not just poor mobility. Sometimes it's a stability thing. Sometimes it's a coordination thing. Sometimes it's a malnourished thing. Sometimes it's a dehydration thing. Sometimes it's stress in your body being stored in different areas of the tissue. Like there's so many aspects of injury. But over the last 2 months especially, I feel like my workouts are just kind of like, and my diet especially, I've kind of just I got lax, right? And I'm getting this little fucking bottom belly shit. I know most people are probably like, oh my God, don't complain, you're so lean. But like, whatever. Everyone's got their own things. And I'm like, I know that I need to be tighter on everything. I need to be tighter on my diet. I need to be tighter on my workouts. I need to be a little bit more intense with those things. I need to be more disciplined about meal prepping. The last 4 days since I've got back from Mexico, or 5 days now, I have meal prep every night where I cook every night and I meal prep for the next day. And I've been a little bit better about, getting a little bit more food early in the morning. And just that alone, with some intense workouts and being diligent on my mobility stuff and the things that allow me to keep the intensity pretty high, I feel dramatically better, right? Like, and it shows you how quick that little shift is mentally. Like, it doesn't take long for that shift to go, oh, cool, like, I'm moving in the right direction. I feel good. Momentum starts to move fast in both directions, right? Momentum can go backwards and momentum can go forward, right? No matter what, momentum is just a change in energy, right? When you think about emotion, right? So coming back to the stress thing. So action, the reason why I've always said that working out is a great form, if not one of the best, but one of the greatest forms of managing stress is because it's a way for us to get energy out, right? Stress or emotion, right? Like, and I forget who I heard this from, but someone said like emotion is just energy in motion. And I like that saying, right? When you really think about it. But if we think about like when we're stressed, we tend to be a little bit more emotional. And that could be both sad or anger, but it's emotion of some sort. So if we know that we get emotional or when we get stressed out and we know that it's just a lot of overthinking and things not getting out, right? A lot of times we just need to get things out, right? So working out is a great way to actually get physical energy out of the body. And it's a great way for you to build discipline, right? Because it's a great way for you to challenge yourself on a one-on-one perspective to show yourself mentally that you have the capacity and capability to be able to perform things, to be able to go one more rep, to be able to go a little bit heavier, to be able to go a little bit faster. And that builds self-confidence. That is self-development. Working out is one of the best forms of self-development that exists in that I know of, right, as far as a coach. So when you think about managing stress, it's like, okay, if people that are stressed out, if they were to just go work out, that would be a huge step in the right direction for so many people. And I don't even think necessarily that it's all just because of exercise, right? It's because you're doing something that requires movement, and that is action, right? Like, action is going to get you to think that, or to get the brain to feel that, oh, okay, we're making progress, we're moving the right direction. Another example I can give you guys, I don't know if anybody does this, but every once in a while I'll do a little spring cleaning. Could be at work, could be at home, could be with the car, could be at the office, could be some emails, just like cleaning some clutter up. And I feel dramatically better when I have those days, right? I'm like, fuck yeah, I did something. I kind of got cleaned up a little bit. I organized myself. And there's a lot of times, psychologists talk about this a little bit, that like clutter in real life, both physically, can lead to clutter mentally, right? So we understand that clutter, right, or stagnation, both mentally or physically, leads to the same outcome on how you feel. So working out, I feel, is probably the easiest step to just start moving someone towards taking action. Because if you can start building the habit of doing something for yourself, that compounds in the right direction, right? So for me, it's like, this is always funny because everyone's like this, but like I know when my workouts aren't as good, I'm a little less motivated to go home and cook. I'm more motivated towards just DoorDash or be a little bit lazy. And that one lazy trait or one lazy decision that I made in that day not to push myself hard or take a day off compounds that direction too. So then it's like, I didn't really work out today, so I might as well just DoorDash. And then when I DoorDash, I'm like, well, I might as well just have 3 glasses of wine instead of 2, right? Well, I might as well have the dessert. And then it's like my sleep suffers. Then it just starts going down the wrong direction. So you need to remember that every single decision that you make, the smallest ones make a big difference over time. That even like, hey, I'm in the airport, I'm taking the stairs instead of the escalator, right? Instead of sitting on the chair waiting for my plane, I'm doing some stretches or some mobility, right? Instead of sitting at a desk all day, I do 10 push-ups every 30 minutes. Like, those little things that people don't give enough credit for, like the power of walking. Walking, I think, is one of the most influential things to moving the needle and building habits going the right direction. That's all just a foundation of taking action, right? Like, all those things are just action. So it's like, you got to remember, like, do more things that require physical output, right? Do more things that require mental cognitive capacity, that require, like, you sitting down and having some deep work. And like, if you're listening to this, I'm still reading that book, and I will make a podcast on this, right? So that's why I thought about the word deep work from the book I'm reading right now. But all those things will compound in the right direction, right? So if you're someone that is really stressed out, yes, trying to talk to somebody or have someone that you can kind of share your feelings with about it or try to get it out or write it down, these are all solid strategies. But the number one thing that you can probably do is just take some action. Do something. Do something for yourself, right? And the more that you can pay attention to the physiological side of health and stress, the more the psychological is easier to convey, right? So here's what I mean by that. You could be, I consider myself psychologically pretty resilient as far as emotions and stress go for the most part. I still, like, I have more anger probably than a lot of people do. Like, I tend to get just pissed off about things. So I'm not perfect. I mean, there's definitely plenty of things that I'm working on. But for the most part, when, like, shit gets hard, shit gets intense, shit gets emotional, I'm able to keep it together and still focus on my work and still keep moving forward. Like, I really don't get, like, broke up my girlfriend, I'm going to sit there for a month. Never been that personality. Not making fun of people who do that. But when you think about, like, all these strategies that we have, it's just like, if you can focus on just doing something every single day that's a little bit harder, right? And, like, don't underestimate the power of small, right? Because the small stuff will compound over time. But what I was saying earlier is that those physiological things, like, let's say I am psychologically a resilient, bulletproof man, but I sleep 2 hours a night, I eat shitty foods, I drink a lot, I don't exercise, I don't move. Physiologically, my body is stressed out. So psychologically, it's going to carry over, right? No matter what. So you need to remember that even though psychological or stress tends to be more psychological, it holds its place in a physiological state. Coming back to injuries, right? Like, someone that's naturally stressed out, they probably will have naturally more injuries. Your body holds everything in different ways, right? Emotions do get stored. And I do believe in that. I am someone that's kind of a little woo-woo with some of those thoughts. But if we want to fix the psychological side, it's also good to just work on benefiting both, right? So even though working out is not quote unquote done for psychological benefit directly, it has more carryover than a lot of things, right? So when you can do things like, okay, I know, and this is who says this? I want to say it's Alex Hormozy. He always says, I never ever make any big business decisions without a good night's sleep, right? And I love that saying because it's like one of the worst things that you can do as far as decision making and emotional regulation goes, or mental resilience overall, is just have shitty sleep. So it's like, when you think about these little habits, like that little habit of, like, okay, going to bed earlier, shutting it off episode earlier, putting my blue light blockers on at 9 p.m. instead of 11 p.m. or not at all, you know, or meal prepping my dinner and cooking my dinner at home versus cooking out, or pushing myself a little bit harder in an extra set or an extra rep, or my pace, or just working out in general, or walking in general, whatever it is, you have to understand where your current state of life is at. What can I do to just do more, right? Just to progress in the right direction. And sometimes it's not more by volume or duration. Sometimes it's just a little bit more on intensity, right? Or it's discipline, or it's timing. Those are all traits that are physiologically going to benefit you that will psychologically have carryover, because I know when I'm psychologically in a good state is also at the same time I'm in a good state of meal prepping and exercising a lot, and I'm doing all the other physical habits behind it too. So the last little piece that I'll leave you guys with that's kind of stress related is you got to remember, stress is overthinking and underdoing. If you're overwhelmed with thoughts, or you're overwhelmed with anything, you need to get it out somehow. And you need to remember that getting out is multifaceted. exercise or energy or some type of output of exhaustion. Sweat is a great healer, right? Movements, sun, solitude, like just walking, getting outside, great ways to kind of reduce stress, right? Because being inside, being captivated in these shitty blue lights that we spend time in, and just, I'm not saying the blue lights are the end of the world like some biohackers are, but when you look at the difference of how you feel when you're outside in the sun versus outside in the rain, or just inside all day with shade, it's a very different emotional state for me, right? Then the other part is like you need to get it out, and when I mean by get it out is you either need to write about it, you need to sing about it, you need to dance about it, you need to talk about it, you need to talk to a loved one, you need to talk to a therapist. I don't give a shit. You need to somehow articulate what's being confused in your head and then take action, right? I have a lot of work stress sometimes that will show up generally when I'm not having conversations. When I tend to overthink things or get a little stressed out at work, it's also just because I should have just sat down with that person and then just talked about what I was feeling versus letting myself overthink it, right? Because a lot of times you have the conversation like, oh, cool, I feel so much better. So if I can leave you guys to anything, the number one way to manage stress in your life is taking action, and not just physical action of working out, even though I think that's the biggest thing that will move the needle in the right direction. Take action in all things, right? Just staying more organized, staying more clean, keeping your habits, keeping your word to yourself, writing things, journaling things, dancing, singing, talking to people. Do things that just get things out, and balance it out with working in and having solitude and having time for yourself and being able to reflect on those things. And the more that you can get it out and the more you can balance both sides of it, the better you'll be able to manage stress. Because stress, at the end of the day, is a choice that you decided to make for yourself, and it's much easier said than done. But that choice is controllable, right? And when you understand it's a controllable, you put the power back in your shoes, right? When you think it's outside of yourself because you play victim to your circumstances, you then make it an uncontrollable because you then decide to position your emotions outside of yourself, which is a lie. It's just something that you do as a protective mechanism against yourself. So understand, focus on what you can control. Stress isn't controllable no matter how shitty your environment or your situation is. There's always something that you can be doing to move that in the right direction. Hope that helps. All right, guys, I will see you next week. Take care.